Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello, and welcome to In Her Voice, Episode 8. This is Kelly Covert, and I am so glad that you decided to press play on this podcast today because, boy, do we have something special for you. My guest is Lisa Fraley, and Lisa is a holistic attorney. I bet you've never heard that before. Yeah, I hadn't either. And that's what attracted me so much to her, because Lisa is a high achiever. Lisa is smart. She has a lot going on in her life, and it took her a while to figure out how to start listening to her inner voice. And she really shares that with us, the process, how it felt in her body, all of these wonderful things. So in addition to being a holistic attorney, Lisa is also an author, a speaker, and she's a coach, which I think is really cool because what she does is she coaches entrepreneurs and small business owners in how to take care of their business legally, but in a way that is good for their soul, which is so interesting to me. And I think so relevant today as we talk about balancing out masculine and feminine traits. And so she's really sort of right at the tipping point of that, of doing what seems like is kind of a masculine trait, really charging forward and taking care of legal business. It's very sort of straightforward and non-emotional, but she's bringing it to this whole other level of acknowledging in a spiritual way why we need that and how it can help us. I'm telling you guys, you are gonna love, love, love her. Some of the things that we talked about are why it took her so long to build up her courage to listen to her intuition. And I think that this is something that's really common. And so we really went deep into this idea of why it takes us so long, and also why high achieving women tend to struggle with this feeling of, is this all there really is? I know I have felt that way. I know so many of you have felt that way. And to hear someone like Lisa really talk about her journey through that is powerful. We talk about how to find balance between being practical and aligning with our soul's calling, which I love. I'm not a very practical person in general, so it was really nice to have that conversation about how we can bring ourselves back to safety while we're still listening to our inner voice. We also talk about ease, slowing down, being flexible. All of these things that as high achieving women, as women who tend to be perfectionists or chronic overachievers, we might not naturally do. And also, I just want to let you know that the recording quality of this wasn't my best. We had a little bit of a connection problem, and so you'll hear a little bit of echoing. So I just ask you to be patient with that and know that it will be worth it. I tried to edit out as much of the distraction as I could, but it's still not what I would like it to be. So as a recovering perfectionist, I'm putting it out there in the world because I know it's important and I know it's going to speak to someone. So just be aware and try to move past that and let it go as I did. Enjoy. Lisa, welcome to the In Her Voice podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you and to talk about finding the inner voice.
Yes, I'm excited. So I want to jump right in and give you the opportunity to share with us your story about how listening to your inner voice really changed the direction of your life, because I know that there's a lot there for you.
There is, as a matter of fact. And it's funny because I start off basically by saying how I ignored my inner voice for a very long time, which I imagine is not uncommon for a lot of women. But I was working a number of years ago in a large corporate law firm, and it was a really wonderful firm. It was very well regarded, really smart lawyers, just a good place to be working, very coveted position. And as time went on, I felt very disconnected from myself. And I also found myself like getting through ridiculously long days and nights and weekends, living on sugar, living on caffeine, like handfuls and handfuls of peanut M&Ms, which was so not good for me. And I didn't really know what was wrong, right? Like I knew I was at this prestigious firm and I had come out of law school, raring to go. I was a healthcare attorney. I was young and eager, and I was just working to prove myself and working because that's what you're supposed to do. And all of a sudden, I got to be around the age of 30 and I felt like, I call it my little quarter life crisis. It wasn't that dramatic, but I basically left the law firm. It didn't end up being a good fit. And I just knew that my heart wasn't aligned with my work and it was really taking a toll on me. So I actually left the law firm and worked with a life coach. And after I worked with a life coach, I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is really cool. I think I want to be a life coach. So I went to life coaching school, and later I went to health coaching school through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to kind of get a handle on all that sugar and caffeine I was still consuming, and found myself holding out my shingle as a health and life coach. And, a funny thing happened, Kelly, because as I was working as a health and life coach and giving corporate wellness seminars and teaching people how to drink green smoothies, I actually had all these health coach friends who were like, but wait a minute, you're a lawyer. Like, you were a healthcare attorney, you're a coach, you understand us, you understand the work that we do. And we aren't comfortable going into traditional law firms, and we don't feel like traditional lawyers understand what we do. So like, help us. And I thought, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to go back to the way I did it before. I don't want to be that sort of corporate attorney that I was before, which just didn't feel good to me personally. And so at first I really hesitated, and yet that intuition kept getting stronger, going, Lisa, maybe there's a way that you can actually do this and help all of these health coaches and life coaches and business coaches and small business owners, but in a way that really feels good to me, not in a way that felt like the old me. And that's exactly what happened. So about the past 5 years or so, I have been helping people with easy legal steps that also feel good to your soul and your heart, which is highly unusual for a lawyer, for sure.
Super unusual. I mean, I think that's really what attracted me to you, to have you on the podcast, is here you are in this very heady profession, if you will.
Yeah.
And you're doing it from your heart. And I think that's what we all need to be doing, is like getting out of our heads, because let's face it, I think that the women that are listening to this podcast, I know they're smart women. They know what they need to do. They know that if they have the steps, if I just had the steps to do XYZ, like, we would do it, right? And going back to what you said, that you felt disconnected from yourself.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, though. This is the funny thing, right? When you're not as aware, or maybe you're just putting your head in the sand because it's too scary to think that you have to make this major life change, or you think the world will come crashing down on you if you decide to crawl away from this amazing opportunity. So I didn't really listen to my intuition. And I knew that, whenever your body's crying out for energy or sustenance, or, the caffeine and the sugar and the just eating crappy foods and working too much and not having good boundaries, it took me a very long time before I had the courage to actually listen to what my intuition was saying. I sort of knew it a little bit. I had hunches, I had whispers, I had inklings, but I wasn't really courageous enough to face it until I really had to. And I think that's very common for lots of women, smart, capable women who are just scared to make a different life choice because it feels scary.
Right. And I like what you said about how, like, your body was giving you clues. So even before you were able to, I think of it as translating. Like, a lot of times we're not able to translate our emotions, translate what our body is saying into thoughts that make sense to us.
Well said.
But they're all giving us clues, like you're having to, like, have Starbucks 3 times a day or whatever is. And I wonder if you can talk into that. I mean, I know you work with a lot of women who are coming from these places and going into something that's a lot more holistic. What are some of those clues that you see?
So I think that for a lot of women, like you said beautifully, and you stated that so well, our body starts talking to us. We hurt ourselves. We like break bones or pull muscles. We can't sleep. We get cravings. I think the way that the body, and each person is different. Some people have IBS. There's a million different ways that your body can be talking to you. You can experience depression or anxiety. But I think what's so hard is that when you're really accomplished, and so many women drawn to the coaching professions or the self-improvement profession or just really professional development, are high achieving, type A, really together, confident, capable, bright, fun, interesting women. And we can do certain things really well. We've worked really hard to do things well, and to switch into a whole new field, or to do it entirely differently than your traditional profession does, can feel just paralyzing, I think. And it takes a long time to have the courage to listen to what those aches and pains or what that anxiety is telling you, because I think we feel like we're so accomplished in one area. What if we, shift and pivot over here and we don't do as well, or we fall on our face, or we fail, or we feel embarrassed, or whatever it is. So listening and leaning into what the body's saying, and then actually having the courage to listen to the cues, I think is the second half of the battle.
Right. So how did you find that courage? I mean, what, if you can even think back, was there like one big moment, or was it small moments of bravery? What did that look like for you?
That's a great question. I think when when it's time, it's time. I've been having conversations with the firm, and I just sensed on a deeper and deeper level that we weren't aligned. And I'm sure they didn't feel aligned either. And I didn't feel aligned on my end. And as I continued to talk to my mentors, and I continued to think about the department where I worked, I was surrounded by really smart, capable lawyers, but I didn't feel as if my whole personality was valued in that environment. And in honesty, I don't know that it is, and that's okay, right? But I didn't feel that my bubbly sort of sunshine personality was helping or being enhanced that much in that environment. And I thought, I ran a marathon, I bought a house on my own, I did these big things that some people certainly were congratulatory about or acknowledging, but I thought, wow, I'm not sure that my whole self is seen here in this firm. Just my brain is great, my work ethic is great, but all these other things that were going on in my life, I thought, wow, I really want to be surrounded in an environment where all of me is seen, and all of me is heard, and all of me is acknowledged and valued. I mean, certainly my closest mentors saw all of me, but in general, my personality wasn't as much of the focus, and that's great. And that's fine for a large firm, but it wasn't fine for me. And I think I just finally got to the point where I realized, wow, there's a whole part of me that's missing in this environment. And I want to keep her intact. I want that part of me to be expressed, and it really wasn't there.
Yeah, I love that, because it's really tapping back into this idea that we have to own and love all of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, and I think so many women, especially in the corporate world, struggle with being feminine.
Exactly.
And struggle with, this idea that they're emotional beings, and they squash it down because they think that's not what I'm supposed to be.
Exactly.
And whenever we squash that down, our soul feels it. We may not recognize immediately, but our soul feels it. And I think what it really looks like and feels like for women is they just know that they're not happy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It can show up in different ways. So, as it turned out for me, I had an undiagnosed case of walking depression for 15 years, which is crazy, Kelly, because I was highly functioning. I was an A student. I was a cheerleader. I was a track athlete. I was president of clubs. I had it all together. And yet underneath the surface, there was a part of me that was like, really, is this all there is? Is this really all there is in this life? And I wasn't bedridden depressed, it wasn't that kind of depression, but it was sort of this sense of not feeling fulfilled, not feeling soulfully, deeply, deeply happy. And it just caused me to question me a lot, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not feeling
Yeah.
differently? And I think that's really common among especially high achieving women who wonder if sort of, is this it? Is this all there is?
Right. And I think that, and I speak for myself in this because that is the kind of woman that I used to be too.
Mm,
And it was always this feeling, well, like that thing didn't make me feel enough. So what is the next thing that I have to try?
hmm
Instead of recognizing that that enoughness is already there, that that worthiness is already there, and that we just have to tap into ourselves and our strengths that we have. And that's when finally that feeling goes away.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so great that you're doing this work and you're really helping women tap into their intuition and really start feeling like they are enough and use their own voices to express who they are and what they believe and what they are standing up for. Because we don't really get a guidebook, in this life. No one really
Right.
shows us the ropes how to do this. We just follow along with what our corporate environment expects or our job expects, or for a lot of women, what their husband expect or their parents expect or their friends expect. It's hard to sort of pave your own way, following your own tuition, and create a business or a life that is uniquely yours, that feels aligned from the inside out. And so kudos to you and thank you for doing this work to help women find their path and use their true voice.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that acknowledgement. One of the things, and this is totally related to this idea that it's always there inside of us, but sometimes we don't realize it. I read on your website that you at one point turned down a position in the White House to go to law school.
I did.
I feel like right there. I mean, so this was pre this realization that you did not want to be a corporate lawyer and all of this stuff. But clearly
Right.
there's still that intuition, that inner voice that was guiding you, and you were listening to that.
I was. And, well, actually, I was also being quite practical, I have to say, in full confession, because I was 20 whatever years old, 22 years old. I had spent a summer working on the Hill. And, when you work in politics, regardless of whatever side of the aisle people are on, it is a labor of love because you do not make much money at all. It's like a starving artist in politics when you're young.
Uh-huh.
And I just knew that as crazy as it sounds, I had worked with a group of people who went into the administration in the White House. And I just was ready to sort of move forward with my life and go to law school and start making an income. And I knew I wanted to go to law school. And for whatever reason, I just didn't. And looking back, it's crazy. I should have worked in the White House, of course. Like, who wouldn't want to have that experience? But at the time, I was just sort of on this mission to go to law school and start living my life. Hindsight's always 20/20, and it certainly would have been a great opportunity. But I think I made a good decision for me at the time, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's really interesting because I was totally looking at that as like, oh, her inner voice was telling her to do that.
No, I think my inner pocketbook and my inner, I don't want to, I had gotten a taste of Washington and I felt like I knew I didn't want to spend my career in politics. So I felt like it was time to just go forward to law school.
Sure.
Honestly.
Well, and this brings up this idea of like practicality, right?
Yeah.
I think that is something that keeps women afraid of listening to their inner voice because there's this feeling that, what is it going to tell me? Maybe I don't really want to hear that. Maybe it's going to be ridiculous, or maybe it's going to be, it's going to tell me to go do something where I don't make any money or whatever. So how do we balance that out? That need to, pay the bills and buy our food, and with also that need to be aligned with what our soul's asking us to do.
Well, I definitely think that age, growing older and having greater perspective about your life makes it easier for me as I get older to listen to my intuition more. But back then I was so young, I didn't trust the universe. I didn't know about manifesting. I didn't know that I could go out and create things, or I could build a life that I wanted based on how I saw the world. I didn't know that was even possible. So I felt like I think so much was outside of my control, and I just needed to get a job and be a good girl and go do what I was supposed to do and go to law school and get my degree. And so I think part of it honestly was I didn't have the perspective to know that I could trust and I could realize that all of this was still waiting for me had I just spent 4 years or 3 years or 2 years or 1 year in the White House having that experience. I
Right.
think I didn't trust and didn't know enough at the time, but now I might have made a different decision.
Yeah. And I love that you bring up the word trust, because I really feel like regardless of your age, and I agree with you that for me, I mean, I'm almost 43. So for me, age has really helped me with that
Yes, me
perspective. But I
too.
think the other piece of that is a big part of my trust comes from the fact that I'm practicing listening to my voice. So,
Yes.
it's like that trust meter has to build up through
Yes.
practice, through experience. Otherwise, we don't
You're
have
right.
anything to base it on.
Yes, and I love that you said that, because I think that that actually rings true, not only when you're making a life change or making a decision to grow or expand in some way, but also I've noticed it recently, because the past 4 or 5 years I've been working my tail off. It's my nature to work hard. I love working hard. I get joy out of the work that I do. So even if I work really long days, they don't feel long because they feed my soul. And I have a very amazing and lovable and just kind and respectful husband who understands that's part of what I need to be doing. But what I'm finding is that the more that I actually trust that my business will still grow when I'm not working as hard, or it will still grow if I'm on vacation, or it will still grow if I'm sitting downstairs watching TV at night, that trust is actually what helps bring that to fruition. So I've gone through a unique transition recently where I spent a lot of time working. And even though it brought me a lot of joy, you just can't maintain that pace forever. And I think this is really common among entrepreneurs. And now I'm shifting towards finding and trusting and listening to my inner voice, that even when I step away, because I've created do-it-yourself legal templates and legal courses and things, that I still will have income, even if I'm not driving the entrepreneurial train forward every second of the day.
What have you discovered as you embrace that ease?
I'm still working on it, in all honesty, but I feel like if you build the structure, if you build the foundation, this is true for a legal foundation for your business, or whether you're just building your products that you're selling. If you build a strong foundation, you can sort of allow that masculine structure to allow you to relax into it. This is sort of the feminine and the masculine, right? The masculine structure holds and supports you sort of leaning into it and knowing that because you've already put the work in, because you've already built that strong foundation, that it will do some of the work for you. And you don't have to keep striving and striving and striving, that structure is there already to support and hold your business.
And I think this is true too of people who work in a company. I mean, this is not just true of business owners. It's like when we build a support system around us to make self-care easier, to make connection easier, to make, sitting down and practicing meditating or journaling easier, then it's that same idea.
It is. It's true for parents, just parenting, right? They build a support structure around you. Then it's easier for you to have time away from, your kids, to take time for yourself, whether you own your own business, whether you work for a company, whether you're a volunteer, whatever it is, you're right. It's the structure that gives you the freedom.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've really been focusing a lot and writing about, is that the structure can give you freedom. And most people think structures are confining, but the structure allows you to have that spaciousness to expand.
I love that. And I'm sort of a free spirit. I feel like I've never had a traditional job in my life. I've always, I'm a musician, and I play with a symphony, and I run my own business. And so I always have had something where every day looks different for me. And I like that. I like the freedom of that. But also, even within every single day looking different, I have certain routines and structures that allow me to know exactly when I'm going to have, my 30 minutes of me time and all of that. And I need that, because when I'm out of that structure, like if I go on vacation or for traveling or for whatever reason, don't have that same structure, I miss it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I feel like I've always liked having freedom within the structure. So I like having a structured day, but some time to decide, in this 2-hour block, am I going to respond to that client or check my email, but I still have a 2-hour block dedicated to do that work, for example.
Yeah.
So it's nice that when you recognize it, well, and that's right, that's straight up intuition, right? That's me listening to what I feel like I want to do in that moment, recognizing I have some tasks that I need to accomplish throughout the day. I love tapping in and being able to sort of feel into what feels right, what feels inspiring, what feels good to do in that moment. And having the structure of the 2 hour time block, for example, gives me the freedom within it to do what feels good to me at that time.
I love that so much, because really each time you say to yourself, okay, what feels good to me right now? That's again practicing listening, and then building up that trust because you see the outcome of that on the other side. Oh, that's so good. We can learn from that so much. Speaking of practices, I'm really interested in, with all the women that I'm talking to, what kind of daily practices you have that really help you stay connected and aligned with your soul.
So it's funny you should mention that, because I'm in the process of sort of revamping my daily practices. Because I've liked having that freedom, I have had sort of a loosey-goosey sort of morning ritual that I give myself options. And I am trying to move towards doing something a little bit more streamlined. So in the morning, besides doing practical things like getting up and making my husband breakfast and getting food organized for the day, which is really important to me because I am a health coach as well as a lawyer, having good, clean food ready to go for the day. Mm-hmm. But then taking some time to either focus on reading beliefs and stepping into affirmations, like really feeling into those affirmations is important to me. Sometimes I'll clear my energy and clear my chakra energy using a pendulum or just in meditation. That's important. So I feel like I can open up and create space to allow the receiving. And then sometimes I'll journal. Sometimes I'll pull a card. I just feel into what feels good and honor that. But I am in the process of trying to make that a little bit more of a structured ritual. But I don't have total clarity yet as to the order of things that feel the best to me. So I'm still experimenting and exploring, but usually involves one or more of those elements.
I love all of that. And what I tell my clients and the people that I work with is, it's really powerful for me to associate my practices with something that I know I'm going to do every day, regardless. Mm-hmm. So for me, I get up and I get my oldest off to school. And then once he leaves, I have about a 30-minute time period before my youngest gets up. And so, I make my coffee and I grind my beans and I do it in the French press. And I don't even drink regular coffee. I drink decaf. And people are like, why do you have to have it first thing if it's decaf? It's because that's sort of like,
it's part of the ritual.
It's part of my ritual. And then I know once the coffee is made, I sit down in my special spot and then I do the things that matter most for my day. And I love to hear how other people are pulling that in. And I like the idea of almost having a choice.
It's like a smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Smorgasbord of self-care practices. Well, again, that's very true to me. Like I'm sort of a Gemini, which won't surprise you at all, right? A lawyer who's also a coach. Geminis, we like options. We like variety. Like I like being able to pick and choose. And as long as I know that I have my go-to roster of items, kind of like you said, I love that. Do what matters most. I just feel into which one of those matters most in that moment and use that as a tool that sets me up for the day.
And the other nice thing, especially for people who are just starting a practice of self-care and listening like this, is that having a choice in doing many different things, or not many different things, but every day doing something a little bit different, you start to figure out what works for you,
right,
especially if you're just getting started.
Yes. And also exercise is another. I don't always do it daily, but every other day, or sometimes depending on my schedule, every couple of days. I also have a personal trainer who comes to my house a couple of times a week to work out. That's another part of the self-care smorgasbord. But some days I think if we really are tuning into our intuition, we need a quieter, centered start to our day. And other days I'm just like up raring to go with this energy and I want to go run and get out of the house. And so I think listening to the intuition, it tells you information that can help figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, this is so good. So you mentioned that you were a Gemini, and I'm actually right on the cusp of Cancer and Gemini. So depending on what charts you look at, sometimes my birthday's June 20th, so sometimes I'm one or the other. So I can really relate to this wanting something different all the time. That's a lot like me. But one of the things that you had written on your website, which is so fun, by the way, like all of you guys should go check it out, even if you don't need legal love, because it's just like fun to read. Like I felt like I discovered a lot about who you were there. But you said that you have converted to a believer in the law of attraction, manifestation, astrology, and grace. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. It's, I have to say, Kelly, it took me about 2 years, and I wrote all about this in my book, because it was terrifying for me for quite some time to sort of own my spiritual side as a lawyer. Because, traditionally the law doesn't have room for spirituality. And in many situations, like in court and litigation, there certainly isn't room for relying on spirituality in any way. But so many people are so afraid of the law and so scared of lawyers, or have had bad experiences, or it just isn't a warm profession, is a stereotype, as most of us know. And I knew that the law didn't have to be scary. It didn't have to be cold. It didn't have to be corporate, that I could really bring love into the law. So my whole theme has become legal love. And I actually align 7 main legal steps with the 7 main chakras in the body, the energy centers of the body. And that I did not share with anyone except a few select clients for like 2 years, because it felt so out there. It felt so like dramatically crazy and outside the norm for a lawyer. But what I found working with entrepreneurs, or working with small business owners, or just helping even families, is that the law, when you bring color and energy and languaging into the law that people can relate to, like yoga enthusiasts get it because they know what chakras are, from their yoga practice. It just made it so much more approachable and easier to understand. And why that's important is because people don't move forward in their life or their business if they don't feel safe, they don't feel secure, they feel scared and hold themselves back. And so if there's a way to help people get basic legal protections in place, or understand what they need to do in a way that isn't scary and isn't cold, and that actually feels warm and supportive and caring, then that is why I'm on this planet, because I want people to be able to feel confident, to have a strong legal foundation, so they can go out and build this life and this business that they love, without having to worry that someone's going to come after them, or they'll have misunderstandings with clients, or have to give refunds or whatever. So the whole idea of bringing spirituality and color and light into the law felt really, really scary at first, and definitely scary initially to write this book. But now I feel like it just helps so many people feel more comfortable, so that they can have the business and life that they love. It's just a tool to help them. So if I can make the law easier to understand and more approachable and more loving, then that is exactly what I need to be doing. And I mustered up the courage and started sharing that in a wider way. And now, of course, it's in a book, so it's permanently in
it's
the
out
vernacular.
There forever
yes,
and ever.
It's out
Amen.
there forever.
You're
exactly. I know.
Well, and so that brings up this idea of, it's all about the and.
It is.
Right? So like, I love this. This is something that I'm totally into, like the juxtaposition of opposites in our lives. So like, I think of myself as being strong and vulnerable, of being imperfect and worthy. So all of these juxtapositions, it's who I am.
Yes.
So talk to me about that.
Well, that is very Gemini of us, I must say, because, they say Gemini sort of have 2 sides.
Right.
And when I was growing up, I was always sort of this like geeky A student who loved to learn and read like a bookworm, and loved talking about philosophical conversations. And then there was this other half of me that was this high school cheerleader, and I was blonde. I had blonde hair, and I was sort of bouncy and energetic, and I was an athlete, and they were so opposite. These sides were so opposite of me. And the same is true as a lawyer and being a coach or a health coach. And or, someone into the spiritual side of the law, that I think the juxtaposition of opposites is that what I really found to be part of my core message is that we don't have to choose between these parts of who we are. We get to bring them all together when you have your own business and create your own business, or in your own life. You don't have to leave parts of you on the cutting room floor, or you don't have to leave parts of you out before you've had children, when you'd like to go to the movies or whatever. Like, there are parts of us that get left behind, and we're allowed to bring them forward in a way that works really well for us. And that feels very holistic. That's one of the reasons why I call myself a holistic lawyer, because I want people to be living all of who they are, and to feel safe expressing all of who they are, not just having to choose parts of who they are depending on the setting or the situation that they're in.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think what is scary about that, and it's exactly what you were speaking into about, using the chakras with your legal steps, and that you were reluctant to share that, is that we see one of the opposites as being a weakness.
Yes.
Right? And so when we can really claim both of those things as strengths. So I'm powerful, that's strong, and I'm vulnerable, that's also strong.
Exactly. And it's also by who we think is looking at it, right? So I think I knew that my clients would be open to the chakras and the colors and I do videos wearing the colors of the chakras in each dress, like chakra dresses, while I'm doing videos. Like, I knew my clients would think that was fun and interesting and cool, but I worried that the lawyers would think I was nuts and crazy and like, who is she, right? So it was more worrying what the other side would think of it versus what we think of it ourselves, or our clients, or our friends, or people who are closest to us.
And there's the kicker, right? When it really comes down to it, the only opinion that matters is your opinion of yourself.
That's a big one.
Because if we're always trying to please other people, we're never going to be truly us, ever.
Exactly. And, in fact, Kelly, I have on the wall of my office a lighted ampersand marquee on the wall that's often in the background of my videos, because that whole concept of what you just said, where what really matters is what we think of ourselves. And it's very scary to say, I'm not sure I care what other people think, or I don't want to worry about what other people think. I think it's sort of human to want to belong and feel part of tribes, or feel part of community, or feel part of groups and families. That's so normal. But there's such a fine line between, when you weigh out what's more important, what do I care about more, we really should be courageous and strong and willing to say, I care more about who I am, what I think, what I believe, as long as I'm doing it with integrity and from a heart-centered place, and with openness towards other opinions that may be different from mine, then we should tip the balance towards us versus other people.
Right.
The only time when others' needs should come first is when, naturally, like as a parent, your children's needs come before yours, or else they don't live. They need to eat. Or, someone that an elderly family member, someone who depends on you, or even legally depends on you. But other than that, why is it that we're so afraid to tip the balance towards us versus others? It's just, I hope in the future that more, at least little girls, but certainly little boys too, can grow up understanding that they're allowed to do that. And it still means that they're kind and caring and loving, and they're not selfish or self-centered.
I love that. And I think that distinction is so important to recognize, that taking care of you is not being selfish. It's a necessity. And pouring into you is a requirement. I think even for parents, I know a lot of mothers listen to this podcast, even for you moms out there. Yeah, you have responsibilities that you have to do, but your main responsibility is making sure you are full, so you have love to pour into those kids.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
Yeah, super, super powerful stuff. I feel like we could talk all day.
We could
about this. This is so wonderful. But I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about you, and you have already talking about what you do, and then maybe tell us a little bit about your book and where we can find this book and all of that fun stuff.
Sure. So I am obviously an attorney for entrepreneurs and small business owners. I'm also a health and life coach, and I sort of bring those two together to call myself a legal coach and holistic lawyer because I really try to help meet entrepreneurs and small business owners where they are and figure out what easy legal steps that they need to take. Sort of in a certain order so that they can just go one step at a time to grow and support this business that they're working so hard to build. You've heard us talk, of course, about the fact that I align legal steps with the chakras so that each step corresponds to a chakra and a principle associated with the chakra. So that, for example, if someone's working with one-on-one clients, they need to have a client agreement. And client agreements and all sort of agreements I associate with the sacral chakra because the sacral chakra is associated with things like protecting money and boundaries and trust and relationships. And your client agreement creates a really beautiful, clear boundaries and policies with your clients when you're working with them as a business owner. So I've just tried to infuse spirituality and love into the law. And I wrote about it in my new book, which is called Easy Legal Steps That Are Also Good for Your Soul. And part of the book is about the legal steps. Part of the book is about the chakras. And then a whole lot of the book is really about principles that apply to everyone, like clarity and boundaries and listening to your intuition and speaking your voice and communicating what you really believe. So I wanted it to be a holistic book because I'm holistic as well. And people can find out about that at lisafraley.com/book or just even on my website in general, lisafraley.com for do-it-yourself legal templates and courses and free information on my blog.
Awesome. And I'll have links to all of those wonderful resources on my website, kellycovert.com. And you can just hit the podcast tab and click on the box for this episode. So Lisa, it has been so wonderful to sit with you and to let you have this opportunity to share your story so we can learn from you about how to connect better with our inner voice. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. And thank you for everyone for listening. And we just all are here in it together to help each other find our voices, follow our voices, know that we have permission to find our voices. And so thank you, Kelly, for doing this work in the world. And I'm honored to be part of your podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed sitting under the wisdom of Lisa. I so loved her being on this podcast. And again, I just want to thank you guys for being here, for deciding to press play today, for saying to yourself, yeah, I want to learn how to do that. I want to start living my life by listening to my intuition, by connecting with my inner voice, by taking action on the things that my soul is asking me to do. Because when we do that, that is when we are living in our power place. And to me, I love the idea of that. So please take a moment to subscribe to In Her Voice on iTunes if you haven't done that already. While you are there, you can leave a rating and review. That would really help me out a lot, help me get out the word about In Her Voice and all these wonderful interviews we're having and topics that we're discussing, because I really feel like more women need to be hearing this. So I appreciate you doing that. And you can find all of the links of what we talked about with Lisa, how to connect with her, her book, and her website, and also the link to subscribe in iTunes right over on my website, kellycovert.com. Just click on the podcast tab and all of that information will be right there for you. So thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you for being you. I want you to know right now, if you never did another thing, if you never lost another pound, if you never earned another dollar or got another promotion, you are worthy now.